Now that I've had my Siser Juliet for a while, I feel like I can finally make this video for you comparing Cricut, Silhouette and Siser. Just as a disclaimer, I have no alliance to any of these brands. I haven't worked with any of them yet. So this is a completely non-biased opinion of each of the machines I own, their software, and what each of the companies have to offer. These things may change as each company brings out new upgrades and machines, however. Make sure you stick around until the end to see me do a side-by-side comparison of each one making a cut to see which one wins. So I personally own a Cricut Air 2, a Silhouette Cameo 4 and a Siser Juliet, but in this video I will also mention some features of the Cricut Maker and the new Cameo 5 as well. So to start, let's go over the size of the machines and the width and lengths that they can cut. If you have a specific amount of space available for your machine, then the size of it may be important to you. The Cricut Air is the smallest at 53.8 centimeters wide, then the Cameo, which is 56 centimeters wide, and the Juliet is about 60 centimeters wide, so not a lot in it really. Of course, if you are super limited in space, you might actually want to look at the Cricut Joy or the Cricut Joy Extra or the Silhouette Portrait, which are much smaller machines but do mean you're a bit more limited in the kinds of things you can do with them. Or if you have unlimited space, then there is also the option of choosing from the new Cricut Venture, the Silhouette Cameo Pro, or the Siser Romeo, all of which are bigger machines. I quite like my 12-inch cutters though, that's why I've ended up with 3. And the Cricut Air 2, Cricut Maker, Cameo 4 and 5 and the Siser Juliet are all quite similar in terms of the widths they can cut, between 11.5 and 12 inches wide. These widths tend to vary slightly depending on whether you're using a mat or not. Then when it comes to length, with my Cricut Air 2 and the Cricut Maker, you're limited in the length of material you can cut because you have to cut things on a mat, and they only do mats that are up to 24 inches, so you can kind of only do 23.5 inches on those. However, the Cricut Maker 3 and the Cricut Explore 3 does let you cut without a mat up to 13 inches wide and 12 feet long. The only catch with this is though you have to use smart materials in order to do that, or like a Smart Materials copycat, and they're a lot thicker than normal vinyl. This would not work for me because Smart Materials are just so much more expensive than my standard vinyl that I get. So that is why I prefer to make my larger decals on my Cameo 4 and my Siser Juliet. Both of these allow you to cut vinyl and HTV without a mat, and apparently you can cut up to 10 feet in length on them both. However, I've never really tried more than 4 feet long, as otherwise the vinyl just kind of moves around too much. You can also use a mat with both of them as well though, if you need to or you're cutting other materials. Now the amount of materials they can cut and the force of their cut. If like me, you will mostly be using these machines to cut vinyl, HTV and or stickers, then all of these machines will do that perfectly well, and all of them except the Cricut Joy have print and cut capabilities as well that you need to make stickers. However, if you want a machine that can do a lot more, then here is a quick breakdown. The Cricut Explore series can cut over 100 different types of materials, everything from paper through to poster board. You can also get 6 different tools to use with it as well, from a scoring tool through to a foiling tool. The Maker series, however, can cut over 300 materials. It has up to a 2.4mm thickness and it has up to a 4 kilogram cutting force, so it can cut everything from balsa wood to burlap. I link to the full list of the materials in the description if you want to check it out. You again would need extra blades to cut some of these though, and you can get ones for debossing and engraving, among others too. As for the Cameo 4 and 5, they have a 3mm clearance for thicker materials. However, the standard blade that comes with them will only cut up to 1mm thickness. These machines can also cut more than 100 different materials, and you have the option to purchase an additional rotary blade, craft blade or punch tool. So slightly less add-ons than the Cricut machines. However, they can cut with a bit more force at up to 5 kilograms using the second tool slot. The Siser Juliet, on the other hand, isn't very clear on how many different materials it can cut, but it does say that you can cut cardstock, stickers, craft foam and much more, as well as HTV and vinyl of course. And you don't get the option to add on any different blades or accessories like the other machines. You only get the 45-degree or 60-degree blade options that are included. Also only has a max cutting force of 800 grams, a lot less than the other ones. So that does make it quite a bit more limited if you want a machine that does it all. The cutting speed. Because Silhouette don't give out exact values for their cutting speed, I think the best way to test this is by putting each machine against each other and timing them, which I will do at the end of the video. But if you want to compare Cricut with Juliet, then here are the numbers that they give. Cricut Air 2 cuts at a maximum of 5.7 inches per second. Then the Cricut Explore 3 and Maker 3 is a maximum 11.3 inches per second. And then the Juliet has a max cutting speed of 600 millimeters per second, which is 23 inches per second. So as you can see, the Juliet is lightning fast in comparison to the other machines, which makes it a great choice for busy businesses who need to get out lots of orders quickly. And I think another thing to note here is that Siser claims to have a cutting precision of plus or minus 0.01 millimeters, which none of the others mention. So that is something to take into account as well if you want to make sure your cuts are very precise every time. So if you're not aware already, each manufacturer has their own design software for designing and then cutting on their machines. They are called Cricut Design Space, Silhouette Studio, and Leonardo Design Studio. First off, Cricut Design Space has had a lot of criticism over the years, but to be fair to them, since I started using it in 2017, it has improved significantly, and I actually think it is probably the easiest one to learn if you're a complete beginner to cutting machines. And it has all of the basic features you need to get started, and you can also upload ready-made SVGs and PNGs too. Then Silhouette Studio. This is definitely the most advanced of the three and has a lot of different features. I have the business edition, which does let you do a bit more than the free edition, and you do need at least the designer edition to be able to upload SVGs. You can get discounted upgrades on Swing Design. I'll link to them in the description. Or you can get the Silhouette Connect plugin if you already use Adobe Illustrator or CorelDRAW as well. Then Leonardo Design Studio is probably the most basic of the three, I would say, although it still does have plenty of features too. However, you can only upload SVGs of ready-made designs rather than PNGs if you want to cut them in vinyl and HTV. I think if you're unsure, the best thing to do is to test them out. All three are available to download for free before you buy your machine, so if you're unsure which one you'll be most comfortable with, then that is the best thing to do. You can also get the Cricut Design Space app and the Silhouette Go app on both the App Store and the Google Play Store if you want to use your machines with your phone or a tablet. However, there isn't currently an option for that with Siser at the moment. There is a Siser app, but as far as I'm aware, you can't cut on your machine using it. For me personally, I don't really mind because I do all of my designs for my decal business in Adobe Illustrator, and then I just upload them as an SVG to whichever design software of the machine I want to cut with. And I've always done it this way, designing on a different software, even when I just had my Cricut, purely because it just gives me so much more flexibility and more tools to use when designing as well. Now to one of the most important bits, the cost. Obviously, there are often deals and sales going on. I'll link to some of my favourite places to check for those deals in the description. But as of right now, these are the costs for the machines that I've mentioned. The Cricut Explore Air 2 is $229 in the US, but I actually couldn't find it for sale in the UK in any of my usual spots that I look at. So the Explore 3 is £299.99. The Maker 3 is $429 or £382. Then the Cameo 4, I've found it for either $149.99 or £252, although it's currently $210 on the Black Friday sale. So even cheaper than the Explore now. Of course, these have been reduced because of the announcement of their newest Cameo, the Cameo 5, which is $329.99 or £349. And although I haven't tried it yet, if you have the budget, I do think the Cameo 5 looks like it will be worth the extra in cost, just because of all the improvements that they've made. And it's also still cheaper than the Maker 3, so unless you need to cut 300 plus materials, it may be a bit of a better deal. The Juliet is the most expensive of the bunch, and that is £520 or $499, although Swing Design also currently has this bundle for $448, which is a great deal. And yes, it is the priciest, but that is because it is more of a professional type machine than the other two. So that is the reason for that. Again though, if your budget is limited, then take a look at one of the smaller machines instead. Or if you have a bigger budget, take a look at the larger machines, or you could even consider a more professional grade cutter. Take a look at my video, The Best Vinyl Cutting Machines, if you want to find out about the other brands that are out there, especially the more professional cutting machines that are on the market. These are the pros and cons of each one in my opinion. Firstly, the pros of Cricut are that they're such a well-known brand that if you have any issues, it's usually quite easy to find a solution because there are so many blog posts and videos out there that can help you. This also made it really easy for me to learn when I first got it as well, because there are a ton of different tutorials and people out there that are teaching Cricut to beginners. If you get the Maker, you have a choice of cutting so many different materials, and it just gives you the opportunity to try so many different crafts. And I also have to give my Cricut Air its dues. It is still going strong and running fine, and I've been using it non-stop for more than 6 years now. The cons, however, are that you have to cut on a mat unless you're using smart materials and have a newer machine. The alignment of the print and cut can be a bit hit and miss if you don't calibrate your machine regularly enough. I also don't love that they're constantly trying to push me to pay for Cricut Access. I don't need it, and I don't get that from either of the other two companies. For Cameo, the pros are the roll feeder. That was the main selling point for me when I first bought it. That and the cross cutter on the back make it so much easier to cut larger decals using vinyl rolls. Also, the new Cameo 5 electrostatic mat looks very interesting and almost makes me want to upgrade, but we'll see. The cons, however, are that this machine is really noisy. I personally find the software quite slow as well, and I have had a lot of issues with this machine with vinyl slipping out from under the rollers, which has required me to figure out a lot of workarounds to make sure it cuts properly every time. When I had two Cameos running, the slipping got even worse as well for some reason, and I lost a lot of money on wasted vinyl, which was not good for business. So far, the Siser Juliet pros for me have been that it is really fast, it's a lot quieter than my other machines, and it is very accurate. It very rarely makes any mistakes when cutting, and the vinyl never slips because the rollers are so strong holding it in. The cons, however, are that there is no roll feeder currently included or available to buy. It does seem to exist, but I can't find anywhere available to purchase one from. Hopefully this will change soon, but until then it's just a case of clumsily lining up the vinyl rolls behind the machine and unraveling them. Or you could also try and find a non-branded roller to help you. This one is probably a little bit wide, but something along those lines would work well. Also, the software is fairly basic, and I'm still not 100% how to do things like edit SVGs. But to be fair, this is the newest machine on the block, so I wouldn't expect everything to be perfect with it instantly. And although I do like all of my machines, I have to admit I have barely used my Cameo 4 since I got my Siser Juliet. I think when my business is back to being super busy in wedding season, I'll be using all of them at the same time again. But I just find the Juliet so much quicker and so much more accurate than my Cameo, and the fact that it's so much quieter is nice as well. And then I tend to only use my Cricut now for smaller things and for more personal crafting. So now let's face them off against each other and see which one's the winner. So I'm just creating a design in Adobe Illustrator, then exporting it as an SVG to keep them all the same, and then uploading it to Cricut Design Space, clicking Weld. That one is ready to go. So I'll move on to Silhouette Studio. Again, all I need to do is upload that as an SVG, make sure the page is set up for a mat, select all and weld the design together. Then moving on to Leonardo, just have to click upload and again weld. So all quite similar processes and take a similar amount of time. I'm not going to time each time I put vinyl on the mat because again, similar for each one. But I'm going to start with my Cricut. I'm going to press the make button at the same time as the timer and see how long it takes to cut this design. So you can hear the noise of it. And that is done at the 3 minutes 32, about 3 minutes 30 mark. So moving on to the Cameo 4. And here that one's so much noisier. And so that took 2 minutes 32, so about a minute less than the Cricut. And moving on to the Siser Juliet. This one's a little bit different how you have to input the mat. You have to push it all the way through, then line up the blade with the bottom corner. You do just kind of get used to that though once you use it a while. And this one has a little timer on the screen, which is quite useful to see how far along you are. And this took a 1 minute 40, so almost a minute quicker than the Cameo. And here I'm just weeding each one. So this is Cricut and this is the Cameo one. A couple of the letters got stuck, but they're all quite easy to weed. But I would say the Siser Juliet was probably the quickest one, just marginally. And here is the finished results. So other than that two that got a bit stuck, this is the Cricut one, cut really well. This is the Cameo 4 one, again cut absolutely fine, didn't have any mistakes. And then here is the Siser Juliet one, which looks fine on first glance, but when you look a bit closer, the S hasn't cut fully all the way around, it hasn't joined, so it's left a little bit off the S hanging off there, which is interesting because Siser is the only one that claims this 0.01 accuracy thing. But I must say my Cameo 4, when I don't use a mat, is never usually that accurate either. So in the end, I guess the winner of speed is the Juliet, but in terms of everything else, they're all pretty equal. So I hope you found that helpful. I think if you're still torn between all three, the best thing to do is look at your budget, look at the space you have available, think about what materials you want to cut and how you will be using it. I personally think Cricut is more crafter friendly, Siser is more business friendly, and then Cameo is kind of somewhere in the middle. But you might have your own interpretation after watching this. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions, and please don't forget to give the video a like if you enjoyed it, and follow me for more videos like this in future. Thanks for watching.